But I think I think the one thing I'll say when I've kind of broken down Christian Gray is he is someone who did have to kind of grow on me a little bit. He's someone that when I first watched him, I liked him, but he's just so smooth. Sometimes I was wondering, does he really kind of have that speed? And you see it sometimes here, but this is really, Sean, the first thing you notice when I popped on the film and all that stuff. The one thing I did notice right away is this kid is long. And he's listed between 6 foot, 6'1". Sean, I think you're muted as well. He's listed between 6 foot, 6'1". His high school roster has him at 6'2". I don't think he's 6'2". But look at his arms. He is a long kid, very, very long kid. That's the first thing that stood out to me when I watched the film of this young man.
Very athletic, has a lot of playing experience, extreme value on kick return and kick coverage. Now, you talk about not being impressed. The first clip that you played was against the fastest team in Illinois, and that's East St. Louis Flyers. And the fact that he outran them, some of their most athletic guys that end up going to SEC schools, shows you that he has surprising speed. Like we talk about this all the time, Brian, because we see 100 times, 200 times, and he's a track guy.
Right.
On a 4x1 and 4x2 relay for his team at this Met. Does it translate to the field? And I believe his speed and his times translate to the field. I think he's going to be a fantastic boundary corner. He's going to have the ability to use his length, his size, and his ability. And he's going to cause a lot of havoc for offenses because you're going to be able to put him out there and say, okay, take care of that side of the field.
Yeah.
Because he plays with so much confidence when the ball is in the air. And he doesn't give up too much behind him.
Right.
He doesn't have to throw the ball in front of him, and he loves to come up and tackle.
So for me, the tackling part, we'll definitely get to that here in a second because he's got some hits. For me, I don't question the speed. I know the track speed is there and the kick return speed is there. What I was often wondered is the corner speed there?
Yeah.
And these two clips that he's going to show now, and there's some good game film. If you're someone who likes game film, there's some good game film on TV, on YouTube that you can find. But here's a perfect example. So like one of my questions was early on was, can he open up and run? And on this particular play, for example, he gets kind of beat off the line. He recovers relatively well, but I'm like, this guy's not necessarily a burner, although this is Christian Brothers, and that's a pretty good football player right there. But you watch this clip, he gets beat initially. You can see it here. Like his footwork is usually pretty good, but he gets beat here. His transition is a little bit slow. He gets beat off the line, but then he does recover pretty well. But he's so smooth. It doesn't look like he's trying that hard. Then this next play, so I'm thinking, okay, how's his transitions, right? Is he a little tight-hipped? Tall corners tend to be a little tight-hipped. Then you watch this very next clip, and his technique is right, and look how easily he transitions on this next play. And this is one of those things when I watched film, I was like, okay, this is the stuff that when I say he kind of grew on me, it's stuff like this. Like, look, he's squeezing down, and then bam, he flips his hips, gets outside on that wide fade right now, and it's just all over that guy. And then he plants and sinks. And you start seeing more and more stuff like that on film. I think the other unique aspect too, Sean, you talk about him being a boundary guy. To be an effective boundary corner, you got to be able to play press man, and you got to be able to play off man. Yeah. And to me, he's one of the few corners that's really good at both. Now, again, my early question was, okay, does he have the speed to be that at the next level? Does it transition well? But as you see him more and more and more, and his off-season film at camps and stuff, you start seeing him, the speed's starting to show more and more and more. We've seen from him at 7-on-7s this last couple months. But he's got the foot quickness, the balance, the length, and all that to be really good and press man. He's got patient hands. He's not someone who gets himself kind of stuck in situations where he's lunging. He's got pretty good technique. He's been coached well. Shocker when you consider Robert Steeples was one of his early mentors. Yeah. Things along those lines, who I think is a good coach. But you see some of this stuff where he's playing off man, and that's where you see the kid really like, okay, this is when, if he's playing off man, you see some Julian Love to him. Yeah. Right? His football IQ, his instincts, ability to read routes, and his ability to see through the receiver to the quarterback is exceptional. This kid gets his hands on a lot of football, Sean. And I think that combination of being able to play press man with also while also effectively being a guy that can play off man is a big reason why I agree with you. I do think he can play field, but I really like that fit early on as a boundary guy, at least getting a chance to be that boundary guy because of that combination of ability to press, his length, his transition, his ability to press, and the fact he's a really impact off-ball cover man as well.
And I spoke with his high school coach, and he also pointed out something. He said, just don't limit him to being a field guy. He
Mhm.
can be a guy. He can be a chess piece for the defensive coordinator because you can allow him to follow. He can do that. And it goes back to what you said. He can play the field. You could possibly see him in the slot. If you choose to say, Christian, take this guy all game. He's your guy, which Notre Dame in the past really hasn't done. They've pretty much been a field boundary defense,
Mhm.
but it just gives you that flexibility in certain situations to be able to have a kid with the flexibility and the talent that can allow a defensive coordinator to possibly scheme against someone or a particular player for that 1 week.
I think that as you look at this makeup, Sean, as we watch the film a little bit, that's an interesting point I kind of want to get to, is being able to kind of get away from field boundary. I'd
Yeah.
like for them to be able to get away from field boundary, especially when you're talking about playing teams like Ohio State and
Mm-hmm.
Clemson and some of these teams that are going to push the tempo a lot more. Is that here's another thing you talk about right there. He's a really skinny kid, like a really skinny kid. And Matt Bayless is going to have to become his best friend, but he's a very willing tackler, and he's got strength. Like he's got really good natural strength, even though he's a very skinny kid. His hands are pretty strong. You want to see him go a little bit lower there, but I like the fact that this is a decent sized running back. And as soon as he hits him, he stands that guy up. I mean, that guy doesn't run him over at all. They stalemate, and then he rides that guy out of bounds. So even though he's skinny, Sean, he's got some punch, which I really, really like. Look at this, and he is so all over the screen. Like,
Yeah, when you see him in his 7-on-7, shorts with the tank, you see the shoulders on this kid.
yeah,
So you talk about, he's going to have to see Matt Bayless. Matt
yeah,
Bayless is going to see that frame.
oh
A
yeah,
big smile is going to come on his face
oh
because he
yeah.
knows, yeah, I can work with this.
Right, because he's
Yeah.
listed between a 185 and 190, but he's skinny,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's kind of like what we've talked about with Josh Burnham. He's listed to sit 230, and then you're like, yeah, but he's kind of skinny. That I really like that transition right there. Like he's got really nice, clean feet. His footwork he gets a little bit heavy footed at times. That can be cleaned up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But this is another thing when a kid's got that kind of length, you're showing press, then you bail. But his football IQ, Sean, is something I really, really like. Here's another good coming downhill. Look at that change of direction, though. Watch him plant and drive. That's really nice
That's really good.
acceleration out of that
That's really
break.
good. Yeah.
Really nice acceleration coming out of that break. So, but that's the other thing that you like about that off ball. It's one thing to be smart and instinctive, but can you then recognize it and have the speed to drive downhill and make plays on the ball?
Yeah.
And he has that. I mean, look, like we talk about, I loved Julian Love as a player, Sean. Loved Julian Love. I mean, he was, no pun intended, he was an excellent football player. Look at his physicality. Like I said, he's got strong hands, very strong hands. Look at that. And a little grabby. Have to work on that. Very strong hands. But the thing about Julian Love was doing what he was doing at 5'10 and a half and running a 4.55.
Right.
Right. This is a kid who's 6 foot plus with longer arms that's been timed as a 4.4 guy. So if that starts to show up more consistently in coverage, then this is a kid that has that kind of high level ability to be an impact player in what Notre Dame wants to do. And